Good afternoon, everybody. This is Don Graves, and welcome to this week's webinar with my partner, Insurance WebEx. I'm so happy to be partnering with them. This is maybe my third or fourth webinar, but I'm most excited for those who have chose to join us today. You're head of the class, you're first place in line, and you're going to get the secret sauce, the extra special information. Let me set my timer here so I don't go over. I'll hit the start button here. But you're first place head of the class because you have seen or wanted to know something that others didn't know or maybe others thought they knew about. We're going to talk about 11 ways to create more planning conversations with housing wealth. I'm Don Graves. I'm an adjunct instructor at the American College for Financial Services. That's me 50 pounds ago, 50 pounds, but thanks to Whole30 and South Beach and bone broth diet and every other thing I found at 3 in the morning, I'm 50 pounds lighter. So at some point I'll get a prettier picture up there. I'm the president of the Housing Wealth Studies. I'm a charter member of the Funding Longevity Task Force of the American College. In 19 years I've spent doing reverse mortgages, either as a practitioner or a teacher. In that time I've had some 12,500 consumer-facing conversations, and more than 16,000 advisors have engaged me in one way, shape, or form. So I'm glad you're here with me today. When we think about financial planning or retirement planning, often people think, well, this is the plan here. We're going to help our clients save their money and reach their goal, and it'd be a pretty smooth ride, but actually it turns out to be more like this, doesn't it? Peaks and valleys, hills and troughs, and storms to weather to reach the flag, the goal, but that's really not the metaphor. Retirement metaphor is most commonly being used today as this mountain right here. You've seen it before, a silhouette of Everest, the mountain. And retirement is like climbing the mountain. The first phase, the accumulation, is asset allocation. We're trying to get as much money as we can to reach the top, plant our flag, put our hands on our hip and say, we made it. But what most people have discovered is retirement is lasting a little bit longer than imagine, and they've got to say.
It looks like we're having some technical difficulties. Your slides are not progressing.
Thank you, Elise. You can hear my voice, but let's see. Let's go back here. Elise, stay on the line, please. Elise, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Can you see me there?
Yep, there we go.
There it is. Okay, is that it? All right, very
sure
good,
is.
folks. I'm sorry. Let me show you 50 pounds heavier right there. That's me. That's an important slide, just in case you see me on the street. I look more like Denzel than I do Forrest Whitaker and King of Scotland, young Denzel now. In financial planning, as I was saying, most people liken it to trying to reach your goal right here, and the ride is a little bit more difficult than you imagine. But retirement metaphor is becoming to look like Everest, where you accumulate, get to the top of the mountain, plant your flag, but many have discovered that it's a much higher mountain. They needed to save more, work longer to reach their goal. And then they come down the mountain. That's what we know as the distribution phase or income allocation. And that's where the real danger begins. The danger is coming down the mountain. The American College has identified 18 major risks in retirement. That means there are 18 ways to lose it all coming down the mountain. Longevity risk, inflation, excessive withdrawal risk, market risk, all of these. You can find, I created a booklet on that, 18risk.com if you want it. But the point is, coming down the mountain is very, very challenging. And driving the challenge is this group right here, the face of the baby boomers. Do you recognize these people right here? Did you say the Rolling Stones? That's not correct. It's the Strolling Bones because they're really old now. Mick Jagger is actually not a baby boomer. He's older than a baby boomer, but the rest of them, he represents the existing retiree. Born between 1946-64, 10,000 a day turns 62. 10,000 a day turns 70 and a half is more importantly. That's the largest transfer of wealth that's happening right now. They're going to live longer. They've not saved enough. 68%, up to 68%, some statistics say, will be carrying some sort of mortgage-related debt into retirement. Pay attention to that because we're going to circle back to that. But the good news is 87% of them own a home. 87% of them own a home. So two major numbers. 87% of boomers own a home. And 68%, some statistics up to 68%, will be carrying some sort of mortgage, home equity loan, home equity line of credit, or second mortgage payment debt into retirement. Professor Jamie Hopkins said this in CNBC in an article. It said, retirees simply cannot afford to ignore home equity as an income source and still meet their retirement goals. The Census Bureau said this: the average retiring married couple has about $92,000 in non-equity assets, but $192,000 in home equity. Simply stated, the majority of the boomers' wealth, the large majority in percentages in housing wealth. Do you as an advisor know what to do with housing wealth? Why is this discussion important? 1 in 5 Americans will be over the age of 65 by the year 2025. The majority of wealth is concentrated in boomers. You know, they've lived longer, they've not saved enough, they're highly indebted. The tsunami for boomers, $53 million of wealth, trillion wealth transfer coming in the next few years, beginning now and going through 2061. Only 16% of boomers have a financial plan or someone they consider a financial planner, and there's more than $6 trillion in unmonetized senior home equity. And the list goes on and on. So home equity or housing wealth is very, very important. Don, what do you mean when you say housing wealth? Housing wealth is not home equity. Home equity is like having oil in your backyard, like Jed Clampett. You can have oil in your backyard, but it doesn't do you any good unless you can get it out of the ground. You could have diamonds or gold in your backyard. It does you no good unless you can get it out of the ground. Housing wealth is having access to the released equity in your home to be able to use in a way that enhances your retirement. We'll be talking some about my book today. I'll be mentioning it, Housing Wealth, an Advisor's Guide, 3 Ways the New Reverse Mortgages Are Changing Retirement Income Conversations. You can find more about that at housingwealthbook.com. But oftentimes when reverse mortgages are mentioned, if you're not careful, you can get beat up or shanked or run off the road, or someone could get pretty offended with you. And there's some concerns that advisors have shared with me over the years. Are these your concerns? Well, Don, reverse mortgages, they're too complicated. They're too controversial. Who understands them? They're too expensive. One fellow said to me, Don, I don't like them because they're equity strippers. I said, Russ, I don't go to clubs like that. What exactly is an equity stripper? He said it doesn't leave anything for the family. And I said, well, just hold tight, Russ. That may not be true. Don, my clients have never asked about a reverse mortgage. I submit to you they ask every time they're with you. My clients will never need a reverse mortgage. They have more money than they'll ever need. That's possible. Perhaps not probable. Or Don, if my clients ever ask or if they ever need it, I would only tell them to use a reverse mortgage as a last resort. When pigs flew and when fat ladies sang, I would tell them to do the reverse mortgage. I don't think that's optimal. But those are the concerns. Now, I was at the Arizona Institute for the Financial Service Professionals last year, year before last, and I wrote an email very much like the one you all get from me. And a fellow wrote me back. He said, Don, we're an independent registered investment advisory firm, and we manage the nest egg of 400 clients. We've done a lot of research on reverse mortgages, and we don't feel it's a prudent strategy, watch this, for any of our clients. And I thought, man, that is pretty spectacular. None of your clients? Zero? Not a one of your clients. So I began asking these 3 questions to those on the call. I'll ask you these questions. There are only 3, but I'll ask that you'll be honest because you're on the call. The first question is, what percentage of your clients who are at or in retirement do you think would have a need for a reverse mortgage? Be honest. 5, 10, 15%. That's normally what I get when I do an education seminar. The second question, what percentage of those clients would say they're 100% certain they'll have a great retirement? Think about that question. That's a small number too, isn't it? 5, 10, or 15%. I was on WOR radio in New York City a few Saturdays ago, and a caller called in. He thought that was an unfair question. He said, how many people are really 100% certain? I said, I don't know. Are you about your retirement? He says, well, no. I said, well, how certain are you? 90, 80, 70? See, it's just a way to start a conversation. But the truth is, most of our clients don't have a certainty about retirement. Third and final question. Well, if there were a strategy to help your clients increase cash flow, reduce risk, preserve assets, enhance liquidity, and add new savings back into retirement, here's the question. What percentage of your clients would want you to tell them about it? 100%. 100% of your clients would want you to tell them how in retirement they could increase their cash flow, reduce their retirement risk, preserve assets, enhance or improve liquidity, and add new dollars back into savings. 100% would want that. Now, how does that happen? How is it that 5 or 10% of your clients you believe would need a reverse mortgage, but 100% would want you to tell them what a reverse mortgage does? Because that's exactly what a reverse mortgage does. Increases cash flow, reduce risk, preserve assets, improve liquidity, and add new savings back into retirement. So the big idea today is, can reverse mortgages help advisors create new planning conversations with existing clients? Can it do that? Can reverse mortgages help advisors acquire new clients? The advisor's challenge is finding new clients who have available resources for planning. If you're listening, Mama said if you help a preacher, he'll end sooner. So just say amen if that's true for you. Maintaining clients and AUM from attrition and premature erosion due to all types of factors. Finding new planning opportunities from existing clients. I had a fella, I said, how many planning opportunities are you finding from existing clients? He said, Don, nearly none. I managed their wealth. We've got annuities and insurance in place. What other opportunities exist? Well, that's what this call is about today. It's about you staying relevant and top of mind with your clients, standing out from other advisors, standing out from the crowd. That's the advisor's challenge, and many others that I won't talk about. So today, I'm going to give you the single most impactful question you can ask a client, should be singular there, and why. I'm going to give you 2 simple questions you can ask a client's children that will or could transform your practice. I'm going to give you those today. So the typical retirement planning picture for advisors in retirement planning space is you've got a client's income. Maybe they're still working. Maybe they got Social Security. You've got their investments, 401k, 403b, and IRA. And you've got their insurance, including annuities, maybe a business they want to sell or a second home. And from that, you've got to develop a withdrawal plan. Maybe it's systematic withdrawal. You're using a 4% initial withdrawal rate. Maybe it's a bucket or time segmentation or flooring strategy, safety first. Whatever it is, you've got these 3 buckets to choose from to create those. And there's a variety of modern hybrid techniques, but it's always the same 3 buckets. I want you to meet Bob and Sally. We're going to talk about them for the rest of the call, so pay close attention to Bob and Sally. They're both age 65. They have a $450,000 home. It's got an $80,000 mortgage. Now, Bob and Sally have $300 in an investment account and $150,000 in cash, CDs, and money markets. They're looking for a better retirement outcomes without too much risk or exposure. And they've met you, and they've met another financial advisor. They've met 2 people, and they're going to meet with both of them. So this is a tale of 2 advisors. The first advisor comes to the client in the morning, and that advisor shares their presentation. They sketch it out on the back of a napkin on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. They bring out their products, and they have certain providers and carriers, and they talk to them about the XJ3000 and the so-and-so index and blah, blah, blah. And at the end of the morning, that advisor leaves with $0 and no impact on the client. That afternoon, another advisor comes. That advisor shares the exact same presentation of the first advisor, shares the exact same products, the XJ3000, the Multidex, Superdex 1003, shares the same products from the same partners and carriers. And at the end of the day, she left with a $100,000 fixed annuity contract. $50,000 to add to assets under management, a life insurance contract with a $541 monthly payment, and an $80,000 old annuity that they didn't tell the first advisor about. You know, clients don't always tell you. An $80,000 old annuity that was out of the surrender period that they rolled into a linked benefit annuity for long-term care purposes. See, there was a huge difference between advisor A and advisor B in terms of outcome. But the question is, what did advisor B know and say that led them to this type of afternoon? What did the second advisor know? Well, firstly, they knew the importance of the client's underlying questions, the longevity question, the lifestyle, liquidity, legacy, and long-term care healthcare costs. Will I have enough money to meet my basic living expenses? That's LO, longevity. Will I have enough money to enjoy on my terms, or will I have to cut back? Will I have access to tax advantage money when I need it? Will I be remembered? How will my money be remembered? Am I financially prepared for the out-of-pocket costs for health-related expenses? Advisor B understood and had a systematic way of presenting those questions, but they really understood this, that in addition to what they already had, they understood the value and importance of housing wealth. And because Advisor B became familiar with housing wealth, reverse mortgages, and how they are to be incorporated and integrated into a reasonable retirement income strategy, she walked out with all of those benefits. $100,000 fixed annuity contract, $50,000 added to AUM, a life insurance policy with $541 a month premium, and an old annuity, 1035, exchanged into a linked benefit long-term care providing annuity. All because she knew something that you all will be learning today: how to turn housing wealth into planning conversations. Someone asked Helen Keller, is there anything worse than being blind? And she said, yes, having sight and no vision. I find a lot of advisors have sight when it comes to reverse mortgages. They may have sight, but they don't have a vision yet. And that's why we're here today. I want you to get a vision. Just like this right here, 1964, Douglas Engelbart developed this thing that would move something on a computer so you didn't have to type and do other things and punch cards. And IBM says, what is it? He tried to sell it to them, and Hewlett-Packard said it's useless. And Xerox says, we'll try it, and they couldn't find a use for it. And one day in 1974, 10 years after Douglas Engelbart developed it, Steve Jobs walks into Xerox and he says, show me what you got. And they showed him this contraption. He jumps up and down, twirls around, hyperventilates, and says, this is the future, right? You guys are doing something with this, right? And Xerox says, what do you see, Steve? He says, you don't see it? And he just left and said, never mind. He called a partner and said, I found something that will change the world. 1980, what year was that? Sorry, 1979. It was introduced. Xerox had sight, but Steve Jobs had vision. You're going to see some things today, and I hope you catch a vision, and it makes a huge difference in your practice. So what are the basics? A reverse mortgage. Now, this part can be found at housingwealthminicourse.com. You may want to write that down. Housing Wealth Mini Course. It's a course I teach. I'm at the American College. It's 1 hour, and so this part I'm going to go through fairly quickly because I know you can find it there at that free course, Housing Wealth Mini Course. You won't be charged any money. What is reverse mortgage, folks? It's just 4 words. 4 words. It's just a mortgage. It's just a mortgage with a few differences. Developed 30 years ago, the home equity conversion mortgage, that's the official name, is insured by HUD. It's a way for senior homeowners aged 62 years or over to convert a portion of their home's equity and turn it into tax-free dollars without having to make a monthly payment, without giving up ownership of the home, or without having to repay more than the home is worth. It's for those who are age 62. It's for their primary residence. Often I'm asked the question, is there an ideal borrower? And the answer is no. No, the spectrum of borrower goes from those who are constrained to those who are carefree. I had a person call me, had $5 million with Merrill Lynch. And this Merrill Lynch advisor called me and said, my client is looking at a reverse mortgage. He's got $5 million with me. I said, why is he looking at a reverse mortgage? He had a home that was $4.5 million. He's a retired CEO of a large multinational pharmaceutical company living comfortably on the shores of New Jersey. And the question is, why would someone who appears to be carefree be asking about a reverse mortgage? Well, that's because he had $2.5 million in mortgage-related debt on his home, and every month he had principal and interest payments or debt servicing of $26,500 a month, or $300,000 a year. And he wanted to see if he could get a reverse mortgage to eliminate that mortgage payment, which he could, through a jumbo reverse mortgage, and increase his cash flow position. So the borrower profile really varies. The amount of money your client can get from a reverse mortgage is based off their age, the value of the property, and the interest rate. We'll come back to this in a moment. And for a 62-year-old today, it's about 40% of their home's value up to the lending limit of $679,000 today. You can have the money in a lump sum, in a line of credit, or monthly payments. The borrower has to live in the home, at least one of them, maintain the property, pay their property-related taxes, and keep insurance in force on the property. Do you know the number one reason that reverse mortgages end up in the front page of the newspaper saying they're bad? The number one reason that somebody lost their house and went to the newspaper, do you know what it is? I bet you can figure it out. They didn't pay their taxes. So I don't know what happens in your neck of the woods if you don't pay your property taxes after 2 or 3 years, but typically the sheriff comes knocking. But before the sheriff comes, he notifies the lender that says, I'm coming, you better get there first. And finally, the loan is repaid when the last surviving borrower permanently departs the house, moves, or deceases. At that time, whatever proceeds were advanced to the borrower plus any interest that accrues gets repaid, and 100% of all remaining equity is passed on to the heirs or the estate. And that's a reverse mortgage. It's just a mortgage, and you can find out more about that at Housing Wealth mini course. Most of the concepts are expanded there, so I want you to get it. So some of the foundations for the HECM, the home equity conversion mortgage. The first foundation, they're five, is the line of credit. One of the ways you can get a reverse mortgage is in a line of credit. I love this example here, this line. This is the market 2015 to 2016, the blue section there, up and down. Even could be the first part of this year, couldn't it? But if you had $200,000 in the market at the beginning of 2015, by the end of 2015, you would have had $210,000, the green line. But if you were in the market, you'd have $197,000. Do your clients, would they want to know what that green line is? Of course they would. Well, it's the reverse mortgage or the HECM line of credit. One of the ways that you can get the reverse mortgage is simply by saying, I want to convert my home into an accessible line of credit to use if and when I need it. So a $200,000 home and a 62-year-old today produces $79,000 in a line of credit. If they don't use that, it's going to grow. 30 years later, it's $381,000. A $400,000 home and a $600,000 home, the same thing. So the unused portion of a reverse mortgage line of credit grows. It's got a built-in guaranteed growth factor. Listen, cannot be canceled, frozen, or reduced. The proceeds are non-taxable. It's not based off of your client's income or assets. Did you hear that? That's one of the most powerful features of the reverse mortgage line of credit. It is the feature that caused FINRA to change their last resort position. For years, FINRA had the position that reverse mortgages should only be used as the last resort. It was a written position until the metrics and the mechanics came out and FINRA changed their position. Don, when did that happen? October 2013. What if you told your clients that you could convert a portion, or they could convert a portion of their home's value into a reserve fund that had a built-in guaranteed tax-free minimum growth factor that couldn't be canceled, frozen, or reduced, and they could access it at any time in the future regardless of their home's value or their income or assets or credit? What would they say? Would they want to know about it? Of course they would. Most of your clients have insurance. They have homeowners insurance, mandatory. They have health insurance. They have auto insurance. They may even have voluntary insurance like liability or other things. You know, the best insurance I think a client can have in retirement is equity insurance. Access to the appreciating equity in their homes cannot be frozen, canceled, or reduced. The proceeds are tax-free because when you have equity insurance, you've got flexibility. And unlike auto insurance or homeowners insurance, excuse me, let me get some water. And unlike any insurance has a premium every year, I've got to pay my homeowner's insurance. I've got to pay these other insurances. I'm going to drink some water, folks. Pardon me. The reverse mortgage can be set up with a one-time out-of-pocket cost of around $300 to $500 to have access to this appreciating equity. That's a powerful foundation. Foundation number 2, the HECM monthly payment. Don, I don't want a line of credit. Great, you can convert that to a monthly payment. That payment can be a 10-year payment. That means we'll send you a check every month for as long as you're living in the home and maintain the loan. What if I live to 130 years of age? You'll be the oldest person in the world and you'll still be getting a check from the lender. Or a term payment. That is, we'll send you a monthly check for a certain period of time. 3 years, 5 years, 8 years, 10 years. We don't cover this, but why would a person want money for a fixed amount of time. Well, I'll tell you one of the reasons. A person called me and said, Don, I've got an annuity that I don't want to annuitize until I'm older, because my agent said if I wait another 5 years, the payment's going to be significantly better, but I need some money now. I just need money for the next 5 years. Guess what she was able to do? Someone says, Don, I'd like to defer my Social Security until age 70, where the payout would be bigger and better. My wife will get a better survivor benefit, but we need a little money now. What do you think that person could do? Foundation number 3, the HECM replacement. One of the biggest things that's going to happen in retirement is people are going to come into it with a monthly mortgage payment. And the HECM replacement simply allows the client to exchange, or excuse me, to replace their existing monthly mortgage payment, do a HECM, and it eliminates their monthly mortgage payment. That's a HECM replacement. Number 4, the HECM exchange. We won't cover this, but this is very powerful. I'll spend a whole chapter of this in my book. And that HECM exchange is making a monthly payment, getting a reverse mortgage or HECM, but making a monthly payment. And when you do that, it reduces the loan balance, increases the line of credit, and is accessible in the future. It looks like this right here. Here's a person that had a $400,000 home, and they did a reverse mortgage and they paid off, so they got rid of their mandatory monthly mortgage payment, but they said, I want to continue making payments of $1,000 a month. And when they did that, the red line, their loan balance decreased, the green line, their line of credit increased, and it became quite substantial down the road. You can find that at Housing Wealth Mini Course. And finally, all right, folks, I think I lost my sound. At least time I lost my sound. If you All right, I think I'm back right now. At least, can you hear me? All right, folks, I'm sorry about that. I don't know where I left off there, but I'll go back just a slide or two. And we've been having challenges here with Comcast. Someone tell Comcast they have to stop doing this. Typically happens once an hour where we're doing voice over IP. We'll lose internet connection for just 30 seconds. So I do apologize for that. But using your reverse mortgage to make a payment causes the balance to go down, the line of credit to go up. And the fifth and final foundation is the HECM for purchase. The HECM for purchase simply allows a client to purchase a new home using a reverse mortgage that allows them to put 50 or 60% down and have no monthly mortgage payment. I talk about that on the Housing Wealth Mini Course. That here's a client that moved from their $400,000 home to $300,000 and had $226,000 left over to add back to their retirement. Very powerful tool. You can find all of that in these foundations. So the foundations, now we're going to talk, and we're going to come down your street, and then I'm going to take your questions. It's the HECM line of credit, the HECM monthly payment, the HECM replacement, the HECM exchange, and the HECM for purchase. All of these are foundational. HousingWealthMiniCourse.com. You can go there, download the workbook, and get all of this there. Now, let's pull it all together. Let's pull it all together. How do reverse mortgages and retirement savings work together to enhance retirement outcomes and client satisfaction? How do they help you as the advisor create more planning conversations with existing clients and acquire new clients? So let's go back to Bob and Sally. By the way, if you've got some questions here over here, if you've got some questions, go ahead and put them in here. And when I get there, we'll make sure we answer them. And if the sound goes out, it'll be back in 30 seconds. Go feed the dog or make a sandwich and come back until I can fix Comcast. Bob and Sally, age 65. We saw them at the beginning of the webinar. $450,000 home value, $80,000 mortgage, paying $800 a month. $300,000 in an investment account, $150,000 in cash, CDs, or money markets. And they know that's not efficient. They're looking for a better retirement outcome without too much risk or exposure. And I told you Advisor A went there, came away with nothing. Advisor B went, shared the same presentation, products, and partners. and left with a $100,000 fixed annuity contract, $50,000 a new AUM, a life insurance contract, $541 a month premium, $80,000 old annuity that first advisor didn't know because people don't always tell you what they have, and they rolled that into a 1035 exchange link benefit with the annuity. Now, how in the world did advisor B pull this off? I don't do what you do, but I would imagine that's a pretty good afternoon. Say amen. So let's talk about what the second advisor did do differently. She simply incorporated housing wealth into the conversation. She just incorporated into the conversation. Here's a question she asked. She said, Bob and Sally, what would life be like if you didn't have to make a monthly loan payment? Oh, you should screenshot that. You should do something quickly. What would life be like if you didn't have to make a monthly loan payment? That's the single most powerful question I can tell an advisor to ask their clients. Why? Because 2/3 of your clients are going to have a response to that question. Most of them will have this response. Listen closely. Whew, it would be great. And they're going to tell you why it would be great. You could ask them, if you didn't have a monthly mortgage payment, what would you do with that $800, $1,200, $1,300? In the case of the person in New Jersey, $26,500 a month. What would you do? It's a powerful question. And so this couple heard about it. They did a HECM exchange. So you remember the reverse mortgage made available to them a certain amount of money. It paid off their existing mortgage and left them with a $147,000 line of credit. Now, what does that mean? What can this client now do? Let's walk through 11 ways to create more planning conversations with housing wealth. I just gave you the most powerful question you could ask. What would retirement be like if you didn't have to make a monthly mortgage payment? And I told you what the client did. Now I'm going to tell you how they did it. So the reverse mortgage, right? If a person has $150,000 like this client, and it's in cash under the mattress or CDs or money market, and it's not being very effective. They know that. They know they don't want to get a 0.5% or 1/4%. They would like to get more. What's the biggest hindrance? What's the biggest obstacle to people purchasing some sort of fixed income? What's loss of control? They lose their liquidity or perceived liquidity. Now, when this person got the HECM and we paid off their existing mortgage, we left them with a $147,000 line of credit. We have now created liquidity. That $147,000 is accessible to them. It's growing at 5.5%. They can take it out. They can put it back. They can hug it. They can speak to it kindly, but they've got liquidity. And because you have now given them liquidity, you're able to say to them that $100,000 that is not working for you effectively now can be used to do this. That's how that advisor had a $100,000 fixed annuity contract. But the client had $150,000 in the CD money market. They put $100,000 in fixed income, and the other $50,000 they decided, well, we could keep it as cash, or we could put it back into the market. This is what Harold Ivinsky talks about. Harold Ivinsky is called the father of financial planning, and he's written several books, and he talked about instead of having this cash reserve for your clients that's not working for them, if they've got a reverse mortgage line of credit, then they've got an emergency fund. Now you can put those dollars back to work. And so that's how Bob and Sally were able to add $50,000 back to their assets under management. Now, we eliminated their monthly mortgage payment, right? They're paying $800 a month. And now they're no longer paying $800 a month. And you talk to them about life insurance, about the ability to purchase life insurance. And you ran a scenario and you said for $541 a month, you can purchase this life insurance that will do A, B, C, and X, Y, and Z. And before, when you spoke to them, they said, that's so much money. We don't have $541 in cash flow. That's too much. But after the HECM exchange, look at the conversation you've created. Now you say to them, if we can get you a life insurance policy for efficiency of wealth transfer, death benefit, and other things that we can do with permanent life insurance, and it did not impact your cash flow, would you want to talk about it? That's your third conversation. Now, Bob and Sally got so excited. They said, listen, Jim, we didn't tell you this, but we've got an old annuity. It's 12 years old. It's just sitting there. Can we do something with that? And you said to them, well, certainly we can roll that over to a linked benefit annuity and establish a long-term care plan if you like. And they said, we would like that. What benefit does that provide? And you told them. You see, and then they were spending $800 on a monthly mortgage payment. You eliminated that. You gave them a liquidity bridge. You gave them $50,000. You have a life insurance policy. You rolled over to an old annuity, and they still have $300 in cash flow remaining. $300 in cash flow remaining plus $147,000. See what you've done? Here are the conversations. You've talked about a liquidity bridge, preventing asset erosion, wealth transfer, establishing a long-term care plan, increasing cash flow, and we're not finished yet. There's another family. I found them today on the internet. They look pleasant enough. So let's talk about what planning you can do for legacy planning for their children. Grandparents want to die when they go to heaven. They want to be remembered when they're alive, and they'd like to leave a legacy for their children. So I want to talk about the advisor's most neglected planning opportunity. This is chapter 13 in the book. We'll cover a little bit of this. Now, a lot of times people say to me, Don, I'm not with retirees. I'm with business owners, 45, and we're doing business planning and buy-sell agreements, and I'm not always with retired people. And I say, of course you are, because none of those folk were hatched. They all had parents. So everybody you're with, even my 65-year-old sister, I'm 52, our mom's 84. She's still alive. Now, here's a question that will create more planning opportunities for you if you can get it out of your mouth. Are your parents 100% certain they'll have a great retirement? Can you repeat that with me? Let's say it together. Are your parents 100% certain they'll have a great retirement? That is a phenomenal question, because it raises an issue that the children didn't know they were carrying. Most children don't go around thinking about this, but you've now brought something that's in the back of their mind to the forefront. What do you mean, Don? I mean, the last time they were at the family gathering at a holiday or picnic, mom and dad talked about how difficult the steps were, how they wish they didn't have the monthly payment, how they wanted to do another cruise but they can't afford it, how they'd like to get a steak instead of a hamburger, how they wish they could do more to help the children but they just can't. The children know about their parents' retirement situation. And by asking this question to the 35-year-old, the 45, the 55, the 65-year-old, you're opening a door, right? Why would you have, it's so hard to get a conversation with anybody, you need to maximize it. Are your parents 100% certain they'll have a great retirement? Now, the children will say, well, I'm not sure. I don't think so. I've heard mom and dad talk about this. And you can simply say, do your parents currently own their home? Do your parents currently own their home? See, that's 7 words and 11 words. You know what I call this, folks? Thank heaven for 7-Eleven. If you're able to ask this question when you're sitting with anybody who may have parents, grandparents, an aunt, an uncle, a cousin, what you've done, you're going to create some opportunities, because you know if their parents own a home, you've got some planning opportunities. You've got some planning opportunities. Now, that $147,000 line of credit, let's look at it. Let's look at the power of having a reserve, right? So that family, the first year, they said, Don, we've got a $147,000 line of credit left over. Can we turn it into a monthly payment? I said, yeah, 7-Eleven. They said, if we let it ride for 5 years, I said, it grows. Don, can we convert it to a monthly payment then? I said, sure, it's more. And let's go out year 10, 15, 20, 25, right? Now here, the 65-year-old client is 80 years of age. They've got $312,000 in a line of credit. They can turn it into a monthly payment that makes $21.21 available. If you're listening, I want you to think about this. I want you to look at this. And I want you to think, what planning can I do as an advisor if I've eliminated my client's monthly mortgage payment and I've left them with this. Well, one of the things I talk about in my book, Tom Hagner's a friend of mine. He talks about paychecks and playchecks. Curtis Cloak, some of you know, talks about buy income and invest the difference. And one of the things I say to them is that by having a line of credit, you know what you've done? You've given your client inflation protection. And so if they want to have some sort of fixed income, if they say, well, Don, I want inflation protection, I want a 1 or 2% inflation rider, that's going to be a larger dump in, right? Well, they don't have to have a larger dump in if they've got this line of credit working for them, because that becomes inflation protection, and the ability to convert it to a monthly payment becomes income protection. By having the housing wealth conversation, look at the type of planning you have done. Listen, I want to say this. Folks say, Don, you get too excited. You get too excited. I do get excited. I do. I have to admit it. I'm an old Kentucky preacher, and I get excited about this because I was in Washington, D.C. at the Housing Wealth Symposium, sponsored by the American College and the Bipartisan Policy Institute, and you had MIT, and you had Cambridge University, and you had Texas Tech, and you had Ohio State, and you had FINRA, and you had Brookings Institute. You had all these people, 14 presentations over the course of 4 hours in the morning, and by 1 o'clock in the afternoon, do you know what the conclusion of the matter was? Do you know what they said? That housing wealth must be a part of the retirement income conversation. I didn't need 14 PhDs to tell me that. I've been saying that for 20 years, but it's good to have it. So what's the value of having this conversation? So let's talk about it. Grandchildren college funding. Grandchildren college funding. Imagine that you're able to say, if I can set aside something and help my grandchildren with college funding, would the parents appreciate me giving them a little bit of legacy now versus waiting? Your client can do that. How can they do that? Well, you eliminated a monthly mortgage payment of $800 a month. That can be repositioned into something that provides college funding, an annuity, 529, or you just leave it here, and you can fund college for your grandchildren. What a wonderful conversation to have. What about a life insurance policy for your grandchildren? The grandchild is 8 years old or 12 or 14, and the grandchildren said, you know what I'd like to do is purchase a life insurance policy. I was just with Mass Mutual yesterday. They sell a lot of these juvenile policies. I was with Thrivent the other week, and they said, Don, we sell a lot of these juvenile life insurance policies. I said, great. The grandparents have just freed up $800 a month, plus they've got this line of credit. How much does a juvenile policy cost? Notice the conversation you can have. What about not just your grandchildren, what about your children? You can purchase a life insurance policy for your children. So your son or your daughter, you said, listen, you need a life insurance policy, so if anything happens to you, you can't afford it right now. And so we want to purchase a life insurance policy for you. Or maybe their children have purchased a life insurance policy, but things have gotten tight, something has happened, and they just are struggling to provide for the premium, and they don't want the policy to lapse. Do you have any clients that they're in danger of their policy lapsing? Well, do they have parents or grandparents? You see, here's a conversation you're able to have about premium funding for the children. How did you do that? You were able to have the conversation because you eliminated a monthly mortgage payment. But even if you didn't, you can have the conversation because you helped establish this line of credit. So imagine the client says, well, my grandchildren won't be in college for 10 years. That's okay. If you let the line of credit grow to 10 or 15 years, notice how much you have to be able to help them. And there are lots of ways to structure that. Lots of ways to structure it. Well, number 10 and number 11, self-funding for long-term care. Don, my client can't get funding. They're not in health. They can't get a linked benefit policy. They're just not in good health. I said, that's okay. That's okay. Help them to set up this reverse mortgage line of credit, and it can be self-funding. That's where some of the other strategies, we're just covering a few. There are probably 40 in the book. Or a traditional long-term care insurance policy. Don, I want my client, I believe in traditional long-term care insurance policy. Sure, you can do that, but sometimes they're expensive, right? So if your client is eligible for a long-term care policy and they have this reverse mortgage, There are 4 ways to reduce, and this is chapter 16 in the book, 4 ways to reduce the premium cost, the policy cost. Well, there's the benefit period. How much per day will your policy pay? If you reduce the benefit period, Don, how can I do that? You can do that because you've got the reverse mortgage line of credit, so you may not need as much per day. You can reduce the benefit period, how long it pays for. You can reduce the inflation protection because your reverse mortgage line of credit has covered that. You can reduce the waiting period. Instead of having a waiting period of 90 days, you can take it out to a year. So that all of those dramatically reduce the premium cost for traditional long-term care insurance. Folks, that's 11 conversations you can have. So advisor A went in there. They came out with nothing. Advisor B had 11 opportunities to talk to their client about all of these things, to talk to their client's children, their client's grandchildren, their client's friends, their client's neighbors, because 87% of retirees own a home. This is an opportunity that you can't afford to miss. I was at Raymond James headquarters down in Tampa, Clearwater, St. Pete a few weeks ago, and they were doing a presentation. There were about 20 of us in the room, and they were talking about longevity risks. And they said this to me. They said, each year, 33,000 of our clients turn 65 each year. That's what they told me. And at the end of the presentation, I said to them, are you talking to your clients? Are you incorporating housing wealth into the retirement income conversation? And they said, what do you mean? Now, I knew the answer. And I said, well, are you talking about reverse mortgages to them? And they got discombobulated up front and coughed and cleared their throat and said, no, we're going to let Cindy in the back answer that. Okay, Cindy. Are you all talking about it? She said, well, we're thinking about it. It's under discussion. It's in committee. Well, the answer was no. The answer was no. And I said to them, why aren't you talking about it? I said, this is the biggest asset that your clients have. I said, are you doing comprehensive planning? Are you doing really comprehensive planning if you're not incorporating housing wealth into the conversation? See, look at the numbers. 33,000 clients turn 65 each year. About 28,700 own a home. How many of them have a loan payment? Close to 15,000. Now, what about you? How many of your clients are 62 or older, own a home, carry a payment? How many of your clients are 100% certain they'll have a great retirement? How many of your clients would want to know about increasing their cash flow, reducing risk, preserving assets, improving liquidity, or even adding new dollars to savings? What would stop you from introducing this conversation? A fellow said to me, Don, I'm not having much conversation with my clients each year. I said, that's a mistake. I said, you've got 1,000 clients that bought homeowners insurance from you, maybe a small life insurance policy from you. 1,000 of them. I said, how many are in retirement? He said, probably 1,000. So I said, you've got 870 clients that have a home. 400 to 500 have a monthly mortgage payment. You're passing up significant. I just gave you 11, folks. I just gave you 11. I'm going to give you a bonus here in a minute. You're passing up. I said, you're just leaving money on the table. You're advisor A. That's who you are, advisor A. The people who call are advisor B. Here's an example I give in the book of a client that had money in retirement savings, and they were drawing out of that retirement savings too quickly. And by eliminating their monthly mortgage payment, they reduced their draw, so they didn't run out of money in 11 years. It lasted another 14 years on top of that. See, allowing your assets under management to last longer by reducing the draw is one of the things you can have a conversation with your clients about. Dr. Wade Fowle and others did some research. This was in the Journal of Financial Planning. It says, well, let's look at a reverse mortgage for someone's got $1 million in managed wealth and 50-50 portfolio, 25% marginal tax bracket. What if they never incorporated housing wealth? What's their probability of success over 40-year retirement? It's pretty bad. At year number 30, we're only at a 39% probability of success. What if they had reverse mortgages as a last resort? I'm not going to use it until my client runs out of money. Well, that's better. That's 69%. But the other 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, the other 5 are incorporating reverse mortgages into a retirement income plan. All 5 of them were better than not incorporating this at all. So whether you're doing managed wealth, hybrid advising, or you're doing life insurance, annuity, long-term care, reverse mortgages must be a part of the retirement income conversation, and you have to know how to incorporate it, how to talk about it. And here's a strategy. Here's the last bonus. Here's a client that's got $500,000 and two brothers, and they're going to take their money out, $27,500 first year. But the pink says the returns were negative. The returns were negative, so they hit the unfortunate sequence of returns. So now they've got significant portfolio erosion because of these early negatives, and they run out of money in year number 23. So I hope they've died by year number 23, otherwise they're out of money. The alternative strategy, if you're doing managed wealth, is to simply tell your clients the year following a down market, don't take out any money. Pretty simple, right? And if you do that, 30 years later, not 23, 30 years later, you've got $1.1 million left. Now, the client's very happy about that. You've preserved their savings. And then they say, wait a minute, how do I eat in those years? How do I eat, right? So Mass Mutual had a brochure called Taming the Bear in Retirement. And you say to them, well, you bought $1 million of life insurance at age 45, and now we're going to use some of that. And I said to Mass Mutual, what if they didn't buy $1 million? What if they didn't buy enough? Or what if they didn't want to use it? They said, well, they're out of luck. I said, they're not out of luck because they have a home. And they established a reverse mortgage on the onset of retirement. There it is on the left. In the year following a down market, where did the money come for their lifestyle? It came from their reverse mortgage line of credit. You see what you did with this conversation with your client? With your client, I gave you 11 strategies, 11 conversations. I gave you a 12th. And here's number 13. By establishing a reverse mortgage line of credit, they've got this money left over. They don't have to cannibalize assets during a down market, and it's going to radically preserve their savings. How did this happen? It happened because those on this call knew about housing wealth, and you're learning how to incorporate it. And you don't even have to take out that much because the proceeds come out tax-free. It's simply not cannibalizing assets or not converting assets during a down market. And the difference was $1 million more, nearly $1 million more to the estate of the second client than to the first one. Did the reverse mortgage cannibalize? Was it an equity stripper? Quite the contrary. It preserved their estate. I don't have time to mention Social Security optimization, tax bracket management. How do you keep your clients in a lower tax bracket? Roth conversions, reimagining the retirement, RMDs, estate and Medicaid planning, gray divorce, aging in place, a lifestyle bridge. I covered 4 ways to radically reduce the cost of long-term care, and we did a little bit about selling more insurance and annuity, but there's a lot more to cover. You can get all of this in the book. I cover our reverse mortgages expensive. One of my favorite chapters, chapter 18. Can advisors make money with housing wealth legally, ethically, morally, and compliantly? The answer is absolutely. I just covered it to you. How much did advisor B make? $50,000 new assets under management, $100,000 fixed annuity contract, $541 a month premium for life insurance, and a 1035 rollover exchange and an $80,000 annuity. Was that a good afternoon or was it not? See, advisor A got nothing. Advisor B did all of that, listen, without ever using the proceeds of a reverse mortgage to do it. See, it was absolutely compliant. Absolutely compliant. So in the book and in our course, I'll talk about, we cover all of this. All of these charts and graphs come right out of the book. And I did a radio broadcast in WOR, New York, and the advisor said, hey, Don, can you send me some books? I said, sure, I'll get you a few books. And I got a call. My office got a call from a client who had a $550,000 home, and she says, I read about eliminating my monthly mortgage payment, that I can defer Social Security and not have to draw and annuitize prematurely. For the advisor, it kept that annuity. He was getting a trail. The annuity is longer, more assets under management, and there was some life insurance baked into that. You know what he did? He simply said to her, why don't you read this book and then tell me what you think? And that's all he did, and it benefited him and it benefited her. HousingWealthBook.com. You can see all the chapters, what they're about. You can even order it there. You can find out. You can email me at askdongraves.com@gmail. I'm going to take a few questions now. Take a few questions, and so if you've got a question, I want you to ask it, and then I'm going to give you something, a real super hot bonus here right at the end. If you hang up, you're not going to get it. But a lot of advisors say, Don, is there a way for my clients to actually learn about reverse mortgages without me explaining it? Yes. I created a course. It's recorded at the American College. It's specifically and only for clients of financial advisors. It's only for them. There's one for advisors, but this is for your clients. I cover this, and I talk to them about the value of having their income, insurance, annuities, investments, and the value of you as an advisor. And I spend 60 minutes with a workshop, and I speak to your client so you don't have to. In about 4 minutes, I'm going to give you that website. And I'm going to give you the code to get in there, but it's only going to be good for 72 hours because that is only available to those who are part of this course. So let me answer some of these questions. And sorry about the audio, folks. I think it's better now. Okay, Carrie, after this, will the PowerPoint be available for this? Carrie, the PowerPoint is not available for this, but the recording will be. How much extra cost, let me see, how much extra cost over going rate for a first? Randy, ask that again. I'm from Kentucky, and I don't understand what you're saying. So if you're still on, say that again, but don't use the big words because I may not. So ask that again. Andre, is the line of credit growth rate static? And what is? Line of credit growth rate is not static. It follows the LIBOR plus a margin. It's 5.5% today. Minimum guaranteed rate today, I think, is 4%. And it changes once a year. Andre, great question. Are there restrictions to what advisors can recommend cash to be invested in? The client, Andre, who gets a reverse mortgage, now let me give you my three no-nos. Three no-nos. No annuities, no equities, no exceptions. One of the things you've not heard me say is the client got the money, they cashed it out, and they bought an annuity. I didn't say that. I said that's what they didn't do. You got paid, and they never used the direct proceeds of a reverse mortgage to do it. That's the safest route. Your phone won't be bugged, and you won't have to fight with these other folk. And so, but the client can use the money for whatever they want. I do not recommend them using it to purchase an annuity or an equity. Long-term care insurance, life insurance has not been a problem for the SEC, for your broker-dealers, for the state insurance folk. Hadn't been a problem. Taking the money out and doing something has been a challenge. I wouldn't do that. And someone asked us a question. One HECM referred to a large banking institution, then turned around and started to market my client despite promises otherwise. Sorry to hear that, Andre. Back in the days, MetLife did this, Bank of America, Wells Fargo. None of the bigs are involved right now. So just boutique firms, the firm that's sponsoring this course, and is one of my partners. They don't market. They're not a bank, so they don't sell financial products. We don't have anybody. They don't have it on staff that does that. So you don't have to do that. Doug says, is there any protection for the borrower against Medicaid spend down? Wow, Doug, that's a great question. And the answer is absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Oh my gosh. And I wish I lost my questions here, Elise. Where'd they go? Hold on, let me scroll down. Sorry, folks. There they are. If you got questions, it takes about a minute to get to me, so go ahead and fire away. Doug, yes, there are some protections. A reverse mortgage is a loan. It's not eligible. It's not an asset, so they can't require you to spend it down. And I work with the Elder Law Committee, and the person who wrote the Elder Law Handbook here in Pennsylvania and New Jersey, and we do a wonderful half-a-loaf strategy that shows your client, if the wife is going into a nursing home, we show them how to use the reverse mortgage to get the majority of her assets, and he keeps the assets as well. Powerful strategy. Doug, make sure you email the person who invited you, and you can talk about that. That person may have been me. Let me take a few more questions. Can a homeowner get a reverse mortgage if their house is paid for? Absolutely, Randall. Tom, can a HELOC be gotten on a co-op in New York? No, not yet. Years ago, it was able to do that. Sorry, Tom, you can't do that. Randy comes back. If a client gets approved for 4.5%, what might be their rate if instead they stay in their current house with the reverse mortgage? So Randy, it's me. So I want you to email me, Randy. Ask Don Graves at Gmail, because I want to give that some further consideration. And those who need to email me at askdongraves at gmail.com. AskDonGraves@gmail.com. If you've got a question, Don, I'd like to have you speak, do a webinar for my folks or to your firm or your local FPA or society, I'm happy to do that. Now, let me give you the bonus, and then you can email me your questions and we'll land the plane. A few ways to incorporate this. Provide educational material on housing wealth, how it may be a strategic resource. Now, for the next 72 hours, this website, housingwealthworkshop.com, it is a 1-hour workshop for your clients. It's me talking to your clients about their housing wealth asset. You don't have to recommend it, endorse it. It's straight education. I'm not selling anything, but the magic password is rfslens.com. 72 hours, and that password is going to change, and you won't have access to that unless you become a member of my special dojo. But I'm opening it up for you right now. There's some materials you can have for your clients. 25 ways to use a reverse mortgage. Powerful checklist. You want to get that. Investment news, 12 savvy, smart, and surprising ways to do a reverse mortgage to use it. Forbes magazine, 5 ways a reverse mortgage can help your clients. An American College, making a case for reverse mortgages and retirement income conversations. It includes MIT professor and Nobel Prize winner Dr. Robert C. Merton and myself. Those can be yours on PDF and color free of charge. You just email me, askdongraves@gmail.com. You want to involve a home equity retirement originator or hero. Do you have a reverse mortgage person you're working with? Well, fortunately, I'm partnered and sponsored for these with Retirement Funding Solutions. I'm going to introduce you to your local hero. You want to connect with them. Maybe they'll give you a free book, give you some access, but you need a person that can do this for you. And you can host an education workshop webinar, and we can do all sorts of things to incorporate that. And finally, the Housing Wealth Certified Advisor. That's where I do a deeper dive on this. I give you the questions, I give you the concepts, I give you the cheat sheets that you can set in front of your client, that you know exactly how to bring this subject up and to teach them. It's 18 modules, 24 lessons, 4 hours. You can do that over 2 sessions. You can email me, askdongraves@gmail.com, and you just put course in the subject line, and we'll get you that information. We're finishing it. Listen, folks, if you want to differentiate yourself, if you want to get more access to more clients and new clients with better opportunities, here's a great way to do it. Housing wealth. 87% of your clients are sitting on their biggest asset. Have to watch how I say that, you see. I want you to be a part of that. So email me, askdongraves@gmail. You can say course, you can say anything you want, but the Housing Wealth Workshop will be available for the next 72 hours. Hey, folks, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure being with you. I'll talk with you real soon.